Today, we commit the deepest of reptile sins. We're going to use a crocodile miniature as an alligator. And look, if you also want to learn how to make a tree from scratch in, let's say, roughly 1/64th scale, well, here you go. You can avoid all the mistakes I made along the way. And don't worry, I'll timestamp specific techniques if that's all you're here for. I'm Sayer, and this is Witch Cove Crafts. Oh, life just won't let up sometimes, you know? For example, you're swimming along, being your best crocodile self.
I'm an alligator! I'm gonna bite you!
Gator. And then, bam! Some jackass stabs you in the head with a knife. I mean, you win the fight, sure, but at what cost? Well, you do get immortalized on Reddit as Excaligator, so that's cool at least. Although then you get taken out by a trapper. Look, this badass girl deserved a far more noble end, and I really feel for her. Him? Wait, do alligators have visual dimorphism? Yeah, okay, not so much. Okay, since I can't ask this absolute queen of the swamp how long she was, and the lady in the lake was, a lady, let's go with Lady Gator. So, first let's get our materials sorted. A cheap wooden hobby base from Michael's will be a little more substantial than this leftover bit of plastic wood, and we can use a lamppost from this D&D kit for our mandatory Witch Cove LED light source. TM. I swear I don't only do projects with LEDs. I don't know why they've all had LEDs in the past year, okay? For the tree, we're going to use sculpture wire of 2 different gauges. Start by bending a bunch of thinner steel wire back and forth to make a bunch of parallel loops. Then, we're going to use 2 heavy pairs of pliers to twist them together, but only about halfway up the bundle. From there, we can split the bands up into distinct groups to serve as our main trunk branches, wrapping the individual offshoots together as we go. This isn't actually all that different from making a sculpture armature, if you're familiar with that at all. You just build it out over time until you have most of the shape solved. Then, we're going to use some larger soft wire to bulk up the trunk and reinforce before getting back into the branches. As we get nearer to the end of each branch section, we can snip out the wires at random to vary the lengths of the branches. If you find you don't have enough secondary branches, break out more wire, and I ran out of steel at this point, and loop it around the joints of the main body branch to attach it before flaring it out. Finally, to make some small exposed twiggy bits, we can use a bit of picture hanging wire. Split them apart to get finer strands and then wind those together into the larger branches to get a little bit of texture and variety. With the body of the tree done, we can fix it to the base. I drilled out a hole or 2 to route the wires through, then glued the whole thing down with some superglue and fixative. Now it's time for the precious goop: water, Mod Podge, and plaster. However, this time we're going to go just a little bit heavier on the plaster so that we can texture and sculpt it as it cures quickly. We're going to dab it on with a cheap disposable brush, working back and forth over the tree to build up volume. The higher plaster content will help it to set up quickly, letting you build up volume in layers, and also making it possible to come back over it with the brush to work in bark texture as it sets up. Once it dries all the way, we'll go back in with sanding sticks to soften some of the more aggressive ridges and even it all out. Then we can free our gator dial from her base to transfer to the diorama. We'll rebuild the water effects with more detail in a bit there. Most of the time, a blunt tool is enough to separate press-fit mass-produced parts like this. Just find a gap and gently work it in while flexing the parts back and forth to pop them apart without causing any damage. Now let's expand on the rest of the diorama a bit. After all, however shall we visit the gator-of-the-lake without a classic decrepit swamp walkway? A little plastic card scored and snapped in strips will give us planks, but this time we're going to be a little shallow and rough with the scoring marks so that the snap edges will also be rough and uneven when we try to make it look like wood. Once that's done, we can loosely lay out some cross planks to hold the structure together and start laying down planks with superglue. Once the structure is big enough and can support itself, we can trace the shape of the base onto the planks and then snip them out gradually with the clippers. Next, we'll drill some guide holes into the base and drop in styrene rod to wedge around the support planks, then lock it all together with a bit of glue. The cut-off pieces from rounding the main walkway can be repurposed to fill the negative space in the corner as debris after a little roughing. This will add a little life and help round out the composition to draw attention to our alligator friend. Then we'll pop in the light post from the D&D Extras kit to hold our lamp. The signpost, also from the same kit, which we can attach with an extra plank we make ourselves, will fit nicely in the back of the roots. A few scattered cork rocks, and a knife, courtesy of some ultramarines I bought in a set back from, COVID days, Hey, I finished the Necrons at least. Mostly. Finishes it off. Making sure to pop the tip of the knife in the mouth. Then we can take it outside to prime. For the light, we'll cut off the lamp glass and drill out a hole in it. Then, stick in a micro LED and route the cable around the post and down through the base. A little bit of thin super glue spread over the cable will give paint something to stick to. Next, we'll fix any holes or gaps with Tamiya putty and drop in some thread to make a water-soaked rope on the dock. For painting, we'll start with zenithal first to establish some light and shadow values. We'll build over that with warm and purple washes to build up color and shadow without losing the values from the zenithal. Then we darken out the swamp base with greens and blues to blend in with the eventual resin. Now it's time to break out the makeup brush for dry brushing, to pop out the textures in the wood, the trees, and the rock. A little overbrushing at this stage, essentially just dry brushing with more paint loaded in, won't hurt either, as it'll add some nice color texture. Then we can use a grungy brush to add in moss and algae to finish off the paint job. Alright, let's do the leaves. Honestly, this was a disaster. In retrospect, I should have used a much higher ratio of the fine picture wire to the mid-white wire. But honestly, I also didn't feel like trying to pose a tree for hours. So my first attempt was to attach leaves directly to the branches. I think I had some vague plan of building up the volume over time in many layers of leaves. This did not work. Don't do this. So next I tried using dyed cotton, soaked in glue, and coated with leaves to build up the volume faster. It wasn't terrible, at least not at a distance, but it also wasn't good either. And that's when it hit me. What better way to make trees than to use trees? Yeah, okay, maybe it's cheating, but honestly, I loved the result. We used these little scale super cheap modeling trees, soak them in glue, and then coat them in scale leaves to add them all over the branches. This not only quickly bulked the whole thing out, but it also added some nice texture and color variety to the greenery in the tree. So with the trees saved by the tiny trees, we can now finish our alligator friend. Gators are pretty muted in color, but the purple undertones on her will keep her from feeling too flat as we layer in the beige mouth and belly and the gray mottled stripes on the back. And then we can polish off her knife, and we are good to go. Oh yeah, resin pour time. Okay, actually this one was a nightmare. I don't know why I sounded so enthusiastic. When I made the tree, I only thought about how cool having the roots overgrowing the edge of the base would look. But then I got to the stage of the resin pour and, Still, first we need something to make a mold with. I do have the plastic I harvested back from the Jurassic Park gate project, but it's not gonna be enough. Let me see what else. Here we go. This'll be perfect. We'll just snip out a piece of plastic and, I don't know what we're gonna do with the rest of this. I don't know, maybe we'll find some use for it at some point. With this perfect strip, we can cut it down to size, it's a little wide, and attach it with silicone. But what about the roots? While I pondered that problem and waited for the silicone to dry, I figured, what the hell, why not punch up the base? So, let's jump over to Blender for maximum detail. We'll stick our queen's name on here, and maybe a little motivational quote in proper Arthurian style. Sorry, Arthur, King of Britain's got nothing on the swamps. And a Florida-appropriate rattan pattern with some braided cord accents. Perfect! And we just send it to print and just need to wash it off. Oh. Gods, what's that smell? Yeah, so I hadn't used my printer in like 2 months, and apparently I left my silicone funnel in there, and I can only describe the smell as chemical death. Silicone is supposed to be mostly non-reactive to isopropyl, but apparently that doesn't apply to being submerged in it for 2 months. So after a quick trip to the store to restock, I love walking out of Walmart with nothing but a dozen bottles of 91% IPA. Not weird at all, nope. And to refill, we've got the whole thing clean. It's beautiful, just what we needed. At this point, it actually occurred to me that maybe Oyumaru, the modeling thermoplastic, it would work to put a dam in the back gap. So I heated some up, smooshed it flat, and pressed it in. Then, with a little dye and some thorough mixing, and one careful resin pour later, we have a swamp, which ended up leaking through a gap in the Oyumaru. Thankfully, it wasn't too bad, but it was a close one, so maybe keep your diorama nicely contained to the base if you decide to learn anything from this. Now, let's paint the base. Washes in beige will cover the rattan, a nice dulled, aged Florida cyan for the plaque, and the shiniest gold for everything else. Next, we need to rebuild the splashes with the tried and true. Drops of resin on a piece of parchment paper, drawn out into splash shapes and cured with UV light. Then we lock it in and bulk it up with a little more resin. We'll just pop in a USB port and a resistor. This one's nice and easy, since there's only one light. Glue it all down, and we're set. For one last touch, I added some Spanish moss. The earlier experiment with the cotton actually ended up coming in handy, as it gave me the idea to make some pretty solid moss by rubbing ink wash and glue into bits of cotton and pulling it out to make long strands. After a last bit of touch-up with some paint accents for pond moss and duckweed and some foam on the splashes, she is at long last ready to crown the king of the swamp. Why did I make this? Why did it take me 2 months to find the time? Oh, God's more like 3 months? I don't know. Why are you still here? I wanted to make a tree. I wanted to make something with this little figure I found at the store. And I wanted to share it with all of you. Maybe you also wanted to make a tree and that's why you're here? Maybe you wanted to make Spanish moss. Maybe you just really like a hyper-specific alligator-themed regional news-based Reddit meme from 2019? I want to see it brought to life. That would be me. I don't know about you, but life has been a little rough for me lately. Having this place to tap into my creativity and storytelling, skills that honestly go largely underutilized these days for me. It's cozy, comforting. So thank you for letting me share my art with you in the moments I find time to do so. I hope you're able to take something that helps your own creativity in all of this. Be kind to yourselves. Find time for your creativity. And I'll see you next time here on Witch Cove Crafts.
This is a film feed. Get out.
Come!